We'll get started. So this is being live streamed on YouTube, and there will be no questions from the audience, though at the community center, because it is a Meet the Candidates night, we'll be able to follow up with each of the candidates for the content that you hear this evening. My name is Tom O'Brien. I'll be the moderator for the next hour, and this evening's debate is sponsored by the PRIBC. I'm a member of the board of directors, and the rest of our board of directors are here as well. Mr. Brian Calder, our president, Barry Linka, Victoria Robertson, and the others must be out in the parking lot. We're most grateful to our four candidates, Ms. Natalie McClendon, Mr. Tony Larson, Mr. Paul Sidhu, and Mr. Ben Allenbus. I'd like to thank them for their participation tonight. This evening's nonpartisan, four-question debate on economics and governance would not have been possible without the very generous support of our membership. And I guess we'll start with a coin toss. Heads or tails? Heads? Would you prefer to go first or second? Okay. Whoop.
Tony will call.
Tony, can you follow?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, tails.
Heads. Okay. So, on the road to economic success, every jurisdiction, whether it be state, county, city, or unincorporated, has established norms for governance and for economic guidance. In the interest of bringing attention to this subject matter on behalf of all of Point Roberts, two of the four candidates standing before you tonight will be playing an active role in the economic and governance well-being of Point Roberts for the foreseeable future. So, with that, let's get underway. The three candidates received the questions last week, so they've had an opportunity to review and prepare, and hopefully the rest of you here have had a chance to give them a look. According to the 2015 Whatcom County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, otherwise known as the CEDS, revised in 2017, the three pillars of economic development are as follows. Number one, create an environment which fosters the retention of businesses and labor so as to ensure economic health and well-being. Number two, compliance with state, federal, and regional environmental standards so as to ensure the health and well-being of the environment and our natural resources. And number three, maintain an effective strategy for administering to the physical, mental, and general health and well-being of the community's citizens. Point Roberts, being the unincorporated town that it is, has a unique dependency on its sub-area plan, being as up-to-date and as relevant as the county's own dependency on regular and relevant updates to its own comprehensive plan, and is as uniquely dependent upon implementing a Point Roberts economic development strategy as much as the county is dependent upon its regularly updated comprehensive economic development strategy. So, given that the Point Roberts sub-area plan has not seen a comprehensive review since its establishment in 1990, and an economic development strategy based on that sub-area plan has never in the history of Point Roberts been implemented, as either a member of council or as a county executive, how do you propose to act to remedy and address these front and center inherent deficiencies within the existing governance and the economic health and well-being of not only Point Roberts but all of the sub-areas?
Me? And how long do I have?
You have 2 minutes and change.
Oh, boy.
Can I just, did I understand that we were going to get a chance to
Yes, so please, start with that, and then we can go into our question. Yeah. Please.
Okay, I'll just make it quick, because you guys want to get to your question. When you have a question that's formed in that long of a narrative, you know there's a point that's trying to be made, so I'll try and address your point. My name is Ben Ellenboss, 40 years old. I've lived in Whatcom County my entire life, and I've been to Point Roberts a handful of times. It's a beautiful place. I'm heavily involved in agriculture. If you've been to the Linden area, you might have seen my name a few places, but that's not me, those are my relatives. I'm a farmer. I worked at the oil refinery. I've worked at BP Cherry Point for 18 years. I'm the president of the farm here. I'm the vice president of the Cattlemen's Association, and it's my understanding that there's not one single cow in Point Roberts, so that's disappointing. I'm going to try and rectify that situation.
Three goats.
That's livestock.
You're speaking of cows.
Anyway, I also attended the Huxley College of the Environment. I got my degree from Western Washington University in natural sciences with a minor in environmental studies and a minor in geography. I've served on the planning commission, and I served on I was elected to the charter review, whereas unanimously elected by the 15 members to be the chair. So those are a few of the reasons that I feel like I could represent you well. The perspective that I would like to take to council that I think is lacking is the fact that it's been my experience that we can have agriculture and we can have clean water and harvestable salmon populations. We can have industry and we can have clean air. Sometimes it doesn't seem like our current council feels that way, but it's been my experience in everything I do that we absolutely can and must find solutions to those types of balances that need to be made. Now, to address your question,
Well, I'll let Natalie and our other two candidates introduce themselves, and then we'll come back.
So hi, I'm Natalie McClendon. I'm running for the Coastal District seat of the County Council. This is a new seat, an open seat, so you'll have a new representative on the council, representing from Lummi Island to Point Roberts for the first time. I am a lifelong environmentalist, a small business owner, and have been a former teacher, worked with at-risk kids, and I've been serving on the planning commission representing this district for the last 5 years, and then 6 years. I agree with a lot of what Ben says about we can have both fish in the stream and agriculture, but it's going to take a political will that I don't see happening up till now, and it's going to be a tough choice. There are going to be tough choices to make. I've been doorbelling all over the district, just finishing up down on Marine Drive and the other Marine Drive, the one on Bellingham Bay, and all the small cities in the district, as well as a number of rural areas. And we were doorbelling this afternoon here in Point Roberts to find out what's on people's minds, not necessarily just along the minds of the people who show up at these kinds of events, but the people who are ordinary people in the district, and it's been really helpful, and that's my commitment as a council member, is to really represent the district, all the people and their issues. It's very clear that in Point Roberts you feel ignored and neglected. There are other parts of the county who feel that way too. And I think that going to this new 5-district, district-only voting system will help that. For me, as a candidate, instead of having to doorbell the entire county, which I wouldn't do, I wouldn't be able to do, I only have 1/5 of the county to think about and to find out about your issues and represent you. So I think you'll find that representation will be better. I'm going to be doing more of this full-time. It'll actually be a jump up in my pay, my annual income as a part-time salary. So I'd love to have your support.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I guess it's evening time. My name is Tony Larson. I'm running for county executive. I was born in Bellingham, and I've got to say, I know probably every square inch of Whatcom County because I grew up here, and even having to head down to Skagit to get up to Baker Lake. But this is my third time in Point Roberts, so I'm really happy not only that we're able to have this discussion tonight, but the meet and greet as well, because I feel like coming up here, I'm probably going to learn a lot more than I'm able to share. But the topic tonight is going to be on economic development. My background is I've been a business executive for the last 30 plus years. I've been a business owner. I'm the founder and president of the Whatcom Business Alliance, and former county council member. So I understand things from the legislative and the policy side. But really, my background, my strength is really looking at how to solve problems from the executive perspective. And that's really what I'm excited about in terms of running for the county executive, is that we have Whatcom County generally is in a real interesting and challenging position. We've seen 8.5% growth rate over the last 5 years. We've seen spiraling home prices. We're starting to get some of those challenges associated with growth when it's not planned properly. And my belief is that every single one of these issues are solvable if we can throw out the politics and really come down and try to solve the problems. I've got big ideas. I've got solutions to these problems. I like to talk about the solutions, and they're ones that are resonating with a lot of people. They're resonating with a lot of community leaders. So I'm getting lots of endorsement, lots of support, because I think people genuinely know that deep down we want to make Whatcom County better. And if we stick with the status quo, it's not going to be that way. So tonight I'm really looking forward to talk about economic development and Point Roberts. Probably learned a lot, but I'd like to share a little bit as well. So thank you for having me.
Okay. Hi. Good afternoon. My name is Satpal Sidhu, and I'm also running for county executive position. I was not born in Bellingham. I think you can tell. I grew up in India, and I've been in this North America for 45 years. I lived in Canada. I'm a Canadian citizen and a U.S. citizen. I moved to U.S. That's where I've spent most of my life. Been here 32 years. I'm a professional engineer. I'm a Fulbright scholar. I was dean at Bellingham Technical College, and I have been a business executive for 25 years in petroleum industry, and I own a business. So I had a wide variety of experience. I have lived in 3 different countries. I have traveled all over the world. I have worked with large corporations, and as small as that, I have a small business which is less than 10 employees for the last 15 years. So I understand. I've been on the council for 5 years, and I understand the issues. I've been here several times to Point Roberts, and I made a lot of friends, as well as I got my earful that county government is not responsive it only happens at election time. We have this forum, everybody comes in here. So I understand that. I don't want to get into county issues because we are here. I want to yield my time because we have limited time. Let's talk about the issues specific to Point Roberts.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. So back to our first question. Trying to keep this tight.
I'll just answer it if you want.
Yeah, okay.
You don't need to
Would
read.
you repeat the
Yes,
actual
sure.
question?
Yeah. So, given that Point Roberts Sub-Area Plan has not seen a comprehensive review since its establishment in 1990, and an economic development strategy is to be based on a sub-area plan, how do you propose to act to remedy and address this deficiency, present, and how do you propose to step up the game for rebuilding, reevaluating existing governance and economic health and well-being?
To me.
Please.
Okay, so even if you had your plan updated and implemented, you would have to have the right political will to give your community the things that it needs. So with my experience on the planning commission, we were dealing with, you know, the long range plan. And what I found is that planning staff uses historic data to lay out what the plan is for the long term and what your zonings are going to be, right? And your zoning lets you know what kind of businesses you can place where. When I drove around Point Roberts, I didn't really see like a business district or a ton of restaurants or anything. And communities deserve that type of thing. And when the Kendall area came to the planning commission and said, hey, we want a grocery store and we want a community center and these types of things. And staff's answer to them, well, historically speaking, there hasn't been a need for that, so we're not going to provide the zoning for that. And so that can be an issue, because if your community doesn't engage and say these are the things we want, they're going to, basically, I guess what I'm saying is, if you plan for stagnation and then you use that stagnation to plan for future stagnation, you're always going to have stagnation. And that's what ends up happening. And I could absolutely see that continue here if your community doesn't engage the right individuals that don't view growth as a bad thing or don't view you having businesses as a bad thing. Because what I've found is some of these groups that have gotten people elected to powers of positions don't want to see any growth and don't want to see more people come to our county. And some of them, whether they say it or not, don't want to see jobs either. So I like to think that I don't think growth is a bad thing.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bennett?
Well, I don't think growth is a bad thing either, and it's not something we can actually stop. We're expecting growth in Whatcom County to accelerate in the next 10, 20 years, and we're going to need to plan for it. As a specific practical thing that I would do as a council member, I had the pleasure to experience a process that City of Ferndale did this past year, where they were trying to figure out how to reinvigorate their downtown core. And for those of you familiar with Ferndale, they've had a lot of new businesses built on Main Street between the Interstate Exchange and their traditional downtown. And it's harmed the downtown. Well, they engaged with in a program at the university using planning students, whole planning classes. We're talking about 20, 30 students per class, helping with a long-range planning process of visioning and then coming up with ideas, getting community input. It was 3 quarters, fall, winter, and spring, for the whole process. You know, doing long-range planning and visioning is expensive. It takes a lot of staff time, and we don't tend to do it. But if we can leverage the resources we have in our community, like upper-level students who are doing planning, or in the business school, to do something like this for Point Roberts, I think it would be, the idea is to bring all the community in, not just the activists that show up at meetings, so that to really get a good view of what people want in the community. So I would pursue that. I think that long-range planning is absolutely essential and important, but like I said, it's expensive, and it tends to be the last thing on the list of things to do.
Mr. Sidhu?
I think I have come here several times and been engaged in the issues which this community has been facing. So I want to keep it specific to Point Roberts, because I think that's where your interest is, because you're isolated from Whatcom County. And This advisory committee was started in 2010 by Pete Grimman, and what I hear from the community, that the model did work for a while, but this model is not practical right now. I think the community achieves their goals when everybody is on the same page and they work together. Otherwise, there's a lot of activity, but no action. Nothing really happens, but it seems like we are talking a lot. I have felt that, and your sub-area plan was done in 1990. And it's just a sub-area plan. Nothing more than that. I think this really needs a new eyes, a new vision about that. And I think that, like we said, that the community needs a more responsive county government to their issues. You're a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and that's why I don't think that I have a prescription that let's come and do this. You guys are the solutions. You know the best, what is best for your county. And as county executive, what I could do is get that consensus going and then implement that. Now, consensus doesn't mean that we all have to agree on everything. Consensus really means is something we come up with a solution and everybody says we can live with it. You give and take. If we are looking for perfect is enemy of good. Let's stay with good, because we can move forward and make it better and better every time. We may never reach perfect. So I see that that there is a 2 members appointed, 3 members from this, and there is a Taxpayers Association now, there is an Independent Business Association. I think the community is clamoring to get something done, but it's not happening because there's not unified voice and unified plan. And I recognize that, and I think that's what I will work on, the sub-area plan. Let's update that, and let's update how this community can be in unison. Not agreeing with everything, but in unison, and they have a common goal, and how can walk on that common goal to be good for your community.
Thank you.
Yeah, the basis of the question is really around economic development and really what is the vision in Point Roberts, and I think, and the basis of the question was that Whatcom County has a comprehensive economic development strategy, and that's what that has to be consistent with the Whatcom County comp plan, and ultimately the sub-plan has to be consistent with both, right? But the reality is in Whatcom County is Whatcom County government does not have a comprehensive economic strategy. What they have, in fact, I believe they need one, but that the comprehensive economic strategy was a document that was prepared on contract by the Whatcom County Council of Governments in 2014 is when they put it together. The data from it was from 2009 to 2012, so that's 7 to 10 years old as we speak. It was approved in 2015, and then it was amended in 2018 with essentially a laundry list of projects. And really, if you read through it, it's interesting reading about the background of Whatcom County and the industry that's there and all that sort of stuff, but it's not, if you're in business, that is not an economic development plan whatsoever. And in fact, what it's really used for, it's a laundry list of potential projects, because if you don't put potential projects on this list, they can't even be considered for federal and state funding. So I ran some numbers. I went through it, and I went through the plan, and I looked at it, and in total, the value of the projects that are listed on that plan total $600 million. So over $500 million. Well, Whatcom County doesn't have $500 million, but that's not the intent. The intent is this laundry list, so it's on there. It's just in the event that we want to move it forward, it needs to be on the list. And I even broke it down. Point Roberts is unincorporated Whatcom County, right? The cities they are part of that plan as well. But unincorporated Whatcom County has, their piece of that $600 million is about $191 million. And I looked through it, and I didn't see any projects whatsoever from Point Roberts on there at all. Zero. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you can look through it, maybe you can find one here or there, but I looked through it, didn't find one. And you've got Ferndale, Ferndale has they've got their plan, Blaine. So really the economic development strategy, it's not a strategy, it's a laundry list of potential projects. And so as it relates to the sub-area plan and everything else, I like what you guys are doing, and that is that ultimately you really got to start from scratch. If you want an economic development plan for for Point Roberts, it needs to be developed. And the way that you develop is you start by identifying what is your outcome. You know, what do you want Point Roberts to look like? You know, there's a challenge there because there's a conflict. Because even you know, typically you'll have folks that lean towards no growth. We want to sort of keep things like they are. It challenges a lot of folks because they see some people that have maybe moved in and they've already got retirement incomes and they've already got a home and you know they don't need to grow because they've got you know so they have a certain perspective. Then you got folks that are maybe up and coming and they need an income and they need economic opportunity and so there's a conflict there. So at some point as a community, what you need to do is be able to get together and decide what outcome do we want. And once you do that, then we can start talking about how do we get there. And as county executive, that's one thing I will do. I will help put the groups together to create the outcome that you want. And then once we have the outcome, the economic development strategy part is actually the easy part of it. It's coming together and figuring out what the vision is. What is it that we want this community to look like? And it has to be done based on consensus. And we've heard that word before. And we need to get the groups together, and there needs to be some reasonable solution. And I don't even know at this point that the county is getting a sense of what consensus is, because my understanding is that the advisory group that's been appointed, that they're an appointed group, you know, do they truly represent the views of all Point Roberts? I don't know.
I think that's where we get to in question 2, so thank you.
Okay.
The state of Whatcom County's economic health is subject to the ups and downs of the national and or the global economic health, and with the 2008-9 downturn serving as our most recent experience of this, most unincorporated areas, as you pointed out, do not have updated plans. Without a solid 2020 forward strategy, these areas in Whatcom County are particularly at risk with whatever next downturn we might experience. How do you propose to address the need to get out in front and in order to identify these cyclical economic pitfalls and downturns? And what are your recommendations for how the current update of the SEDS, which the Port of Bellingham is now in process, how can you be better prepared for these cyclical realities, given that your resources pretty much remain the same, and in those downturns lessen? Natalie, I believe.
It's a good
First
question.
out the gate, yeah.
It's a good question. How do we prepare for recessions? I don't know that we do. I think, you know, there really isn't a lot we can do economically to prepare, but I think we can work on the governance and the decision making so that as decisions have to be made, that we have a good process that would help Point Roberts. I actually asked somebody today when I was doorbelling about that people refer to Point Roberts as a town. You know, it's not a town, but it feels like a town to a lot of people, I notice. And, you know, because Point Roberts is as isolated as it is from the rest of unincorporated Whatcom County, maybe we need to look at some different government structure for Point Roberts specifically. In the eastern U.S., towns are actually townships that are the settlement and the rural area around it. I mean, maybe there's some other things. I mean, concerns about the Point Roberts Advisory Committee being representative. Maybe we should be electing those people. I mean, there are things that I think you're sort of having a lot of growing pains right now, and we need to look at how those decisions are being made, who's making them, and whether or not you're going to be ready for whatever comes your way. If we're talking about being prepared for an economic downturn or whatever. Will you have the kind of governance structure locally, just on the point, that will allow you to respond to those things? Because the fact of the matter is, the old saying, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. I mean, I've had staff people say to me directly, I've asked them why this item on the planning docket is 4 years old and it's still sitting there, and it's because nobody's pushed it. And that's how things get done around here. So if you have a strong representative body that can provide a voice for your town of Point Roberts, I think that'll make a big difference.
Thank you. Ben?
This is a massive question. I guess I would say that I'm not so sure that the Whatcom County Council could insulate any of Whatcom County from the effects of a recession or an economic downturn. I don't necessarily think that that's their role. So I think the only thing that we could do to lessen the impacts would be, good land use policy and living within our means as far as our budgets are concerned to make sure that we don't have massive failures when things dip. Another thing that always keeps you strong, healthy anything, whether it's a healthy environment, a healthy community, healthy ag economy, is diversity. And so making sure that you've got diversity in your land use policy and diversity in your businesses helps not have major collapse if one thing is affected too much. So I guess you probably don't want to hear that I don't think that Whatcom County could help. I think they can help, but I think they help by laying a good policy arena or good land use area, and then it's up to the businesses and the communities to make sure that they're utilizing.
More so, you can only help those who help themselves.
Yes.
Tony?
Yeah, I think that Point Roberts is much more vulnerable to economic downturns, and that's just because it is sort of isolated. I mean, your economy is here, right? Whatcom County generally, that's a different story. I mean, Whatcom County, we're the only place north of San Francisco and west of the Mississippi that can boast 7 million people within a 2-hour drive time, but yet we, even though the traffic is getting heavier, we don't have the same challenges as you see in Seattle and Vancouver, but yet we have those communities right near us. So we've got an extraordinary diverse economy, industries, from farming, we've got farming, we've got manufacturing, we've got technology, we've got we've got university, we've got technical college, we've got higher education, very diverse. So if you look at the trends in Whatcom County, we've never really hit the low of the lows, and we've never really experienced the highs of the highs and economic upturns as well. But there are some things we can do and things that we should do. First and foremost, we should make sure we're supporting existing businesses and industry. I mean, and that's really a challenge now. I mean, the Cherry Point Industries, I believe they're under attack now from the policies that are being recommended in the Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan. We were at a function last night, and we heard from the industries themselves, and they're very concerned. Farmers are very concerned. There's water issues. There's a number of things. We should be supporting existing industries, and then we need to create a business climate that can attract new kinds of industries. And I'm talking about clean industries. Whatcom County can be a world leader in renewable energies. There's projects there are opportunities out there now. And some of the ways that we can do that first is with permitting. I mean, permitting should be predictable, timely, and really, in our whole permit process. If there's a project, just think about it. If everybody in Whatcom County believed that there was let's say a renewable energy project or a solar project, or Tesla wanted to build a battery manufacturing plant or something. Let's just say we took out the politics and everybody agreed, wow, those are good jobs, and we want that kind of company. I mean, they're not going to be attracted here if we don't have a place for them to build or facilitate some building, and if it's going to take them 6 years to do it. I mean, we just heard about it, on Bakerview in Bellingham, a discount tire. It took them 5 years to get permitted for a tire store. So we got to create that environment. We can do that through permitting. A couple other things, and I think you mentioned it. The economic piece is going to come through, much of it through the Port of Bellingham. I don't think we can rely on the county per se, except for leadership at the executive level, which I will provide. But, there's politics involved in that. The Port of Bellingham is the actual official ADO for Whatcom County, the Associate Development Organization. They are the recognized economic development organization for the state. That's where it's going to be driven. That's where the politics get driven out of it. And we're seeing some activity in what they're doing now. But currently, and one of the things you need to think about is when the economy is strong, like it is now, and in Whatcom County it is strong right now, this is when we should be really focused on infrastructure. Whatcom County has $2.8 million bank capacity in the general fund, $2.2 million bank capacity in the road fund. That gives us $5 million in bank capacity, and what that gives us more than anything, it gives us a good bond rating. It gives us an opportunity to do some creative things if we want to do it. And so we have to. It's sort of, you put some of the wheat, you store some of the wheat on the good years, because when the bad years come, you need to be ready. And that's how you deal with downturns in the economy. It's all about diversification and being smart about it.
Thank you.
I will try to stay with Point Roberts. I think that's more interesting, because we can talk hours about the whole county, different things. One is that CDIS list that Mr. Larson has mentioned. Actually, it is actually really a list. The way federal government and state government provides you the grant money, this has been created 50 years ago. That every county, every city in this council of government should maintain a list of projects. So when this state legislature sits, we send them a list of projects, and this is what is on our docket. But that's not economic development strategy. They're not that connected. They're connected from the money, how we get federal money, how we get state money, or how we can apply for block grants and things. That's a list of projects. It's not on a contract to the Council of Governments. It is the function of the Council of Governments to maintain a list of projects. So I don't want to spend too much time on that. I think that what we need to create is a vision for Point Roberts 2040. What would you like to see? Because, it's very easy to say, well, we can sell this out, we can make it in Hong Kong and have high-rise towers and all this. But that's not what we want. I think what I heard from people over my visits, that there is a certain lifestyle. And how we maintain that and still create jobs, still create economic activity. So we don't need to talk about 500 million, 300 million. The other part is downturn of the economy. What happens? The county government is a stable government. It takes that hit a little bit more, a little bit high, but doesn't feel like a private company would do in a recession. Example is your property tax. The property tax doesn't change. That's one large income for the property, And then second, the sales tax. Now, sales tax goes up and down because of the less economic activity, there is a less. But still, the basic necessities of the citizens, you got to buy I don't want to get into detail. Anyways, it takes time. The basic necessities we still buy, we still pay sales tax, but with the decrease in sales tax, that impacts your revenue. At the same time, we just went through one. So there is a strategy which was successful, that we reduce number of people and then you make the savings. But now that is the time when government can spend money and can create those projects to create the jobs for the workers, to pave the roads, to do other things, so that the economy keeps working and moving. So I have a couple of things that I talked about this before also. What kind of jobs you need in Point Roberts? Because this is not compared to Bellingham or the other county. Like we talked about, last time I was here, we talked about the cottage industry. There could be some export processing, like you are so close to Canada, you could actually gain a lot more if there is the ability to bring certain things, you process or finish and send it back. Because you don't have enough consumption here. You cannot create things and consume here. Of course, you can send it to Whatcom County, but you can actually do a strategy where you can have small industries and they can work like, do you want seasonal jobs? Do you want full-time jobs? How many retirees are there? So this all needs database thing. We need to create that database and then work what is best for Point Roberts. It's like you are an IOSIS outside of the county. county government has to be responsive to what the needs of Point Roberts are. We can't tie you to a big ship and a little canoe and slosh you around everywhere the big ship goes. You need to have your own stability. And that's what I understand, and I'll work with that.
Question number 3, having to do with local health and environmental stewardship. Right here in this building is the Point Roberts Healthcare Clinic, and is in as much need of focused stewardship on an ongoing basis as the surrounding forest canopies and the wide-ranging natural resources. Recently, Point Roberts was subject to 5 days of power outage, and initial recovery and months of cleanup from last December's storm puts things in perspective. Because we're so dislocated from the rest of the county, we have to have our own plan for not just the emergencies that come up, but for our near-term, long-term planning. So whether it be planting trees to replace those which are lost due to die-off, storm, property owners' desire and or need to do so, or a need to ensure that the current healthcare clinic is not overwhelmed and underfunded, as it has been subject to in the past. What do you plan to do to contribute when addressing the need for a Point Roberts specific plan which addresses these 2 critical elements, public and environmental health and safety?
I don't know. I do want to point out that it's almost,
Sure.
yeah.
I'm going to tell you that my answer to this question is, what do you want? What do you guys want to see with your healthcare facility? It's a wonderful little facility, and I couldn't even imagine, that being the only thing that you have. I would hate to have a heart attack here.
Generally, you don't get
I mean, I'm just, well, time is of the essence, and I can understand your concerns and wanting something like that, but can the community support something like that just off the billing that it does? Probably not, so then you need to go to taxes to help support it, and if that's what your community wants, put it on the ballot, right? And people have come to me and said, hey, Ben, would you be willing to put, a new jail on the ballot? And I said, yeah, I don't have a problem with raising taxes if that's what the community asks for and that's what they need. I think where people have concern about raising taxes is when they don't trust that the people that are in charge of the money are going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. And so, I think a lot of the issues we hear about the jail is, it's not, or even school levies, it's not that the community doesn't want to pay the money, it's that they don't trust that the people that are up there are going to do what needs to be done with the money, and that they're going to listen to what the community needs. And so I guess my answer would be, you tell me what your community needs, and if the will's there, then we'll do it. If the will isn't there, then I guess one person sitting on a council is probably shouldn't be their place to dictate what you need. You should dictate to me what you need.
Okay, thank you. Now,
Well, and that comes back, what Ben is saying about you telling us what you need, comes back to what I was saying earlier about governance and having effective representative governance, helping shape the policy that for Point Roberts. I'm very focused on rural health care access. I think it's a big issue. It's particularly acute here because of your isolation and your difficulty in getting to the specialists that are in other parts of the county. But it is an issue for much of rural Whatcom County, and that's something that I want to work on as a council member. The other thing that some of your question dealt with emergency preparedness, and I thought it was interesting. I was talking with a Bellingham firefighter a week or so ago and brought up the issue of, we were talking about oil trains, which is a concern for a lot of people, safety-wise. And he just said flat out, we're not prepared for any disaster. The earthquake, and a big one, or any of these others, that big disasters that could strike us. And we really need to focus on that, and it's going to be a community level work, but the county has to facilitate it and push it and help communities figure out what they will need to do.
I think we should start with a risk assessment for Point Roberts on the health and the environment. We should have some kind of baseline where we are, because if we look at the development has been going on for 25, 30 years in that county, or some things in here as well. But we have to have a baseline so that we can work off that what are the risk factors and how could we mitigate them and what has been mitigated. I've been talking since start of my campaign that I would like to have a community-led campaign to plant 1 tree, 1 person, 1 year. That's 1 million trees in 5 years. Because trees, they're not only trees that for environment only of clean air, they're the soil erosion. Actually, the quality of soil improves if you have more vegetation. To me, a blueberry farm is also a forest, because that plant may not be as big as a deciduous tree, but that plant is there for 40 years. You know, that actually improves your soil. It improves water retention and aquifer recharging. So I mean, those are the things we need to look at. And you know, for your community, I don't have a great idea about, you know, I just saw this clinic first time, and I think that there has to be a little more service than that, because our healthcare system is such that you can't even depend on Canadians right next door, because the systems won't pay each other. And that's a shame, really, that, but that's what it is, what we have. And can county just work to improve that? I don't know that county has that kind of jurisdiction. But help with expanding this clinic and getting an X-ray machine, I think that can be done. Because we could find an X-ray machine from one of the hospitals in Seattle or even Bellingham. They may have a really nice machine sitting there, and we can spend money to expand the room and put a machine in here and a couple of other equipment so you can do your testing. And with this digital technology, you can take an X-ray, send it in 5 minutes. Somebody can actually be on the video and tell you what this X-ray says. You know, I think that's what we need for remote communities. I grew up in rural India. You know, I was talking before that we had 5 villages, 500 to say 700-800 people. We had one clinic. That guy was a retired army surgeon, and he came, and his wife was not even a nurse, but they started a clinic. And I remember the first 10, 12 years of my growing, and that's the only place we had. And that's how they grew. The community helped, and they went to the bigger town, brought more equipment, whatever that was available at that time, and they helped the community really well. So, but I think that there's something that county can do to help this clinic.
Thank you. Mr. Rush?
Nothing planned ever happens by accident. There's no plan. That's part of the challenge. And in 1990, the Growth Management Act was created by the state of Washington. It was shortly after that that the sub-area plan for Point Roberts was created. As a result of that, Washington County has to meet the requirements of the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act has 13 goals and objectives. And in any plan that's created, there has to be balance. You know, that's why there's 13 goals. It's not one goal. And one of them is environmental protection, an extraordinarily important one. Another one is economic development. Another one is a fair, timely, and predictable permitting process. That's part of the GMA. That's part of the Growth Management Act. You know, that we need to, you know, watch out for people's property rights, that people have a right to their own property. And, you know, so there's a number of different objectives. And as we're putting together a plan, you know, or as the conversation begins, and as county executive, I would love to facilitate, a plan for Point Roberts, but it's going to have to create balance. There has to be balance, and there has to be balance in everything, right? I mean, really, if you want to do it well, there should be balance. So I think that's really the fundamental piece, is that you got to have a plan. And right now there isn't. And these questions are all sort of, tied to the idea that there isn't now. The economic development strategy isn't a strategy at all. It's a project list, which it needs to be there, but it's not a plan. You couldn't, as a business, as an organization, you simply couldn't use that as a tool to get you to where you need to go, and you need a tool. On the healthcare piece, first time I've been here as well, I took a little tour, and thanks for the tour of the Fire District 5, Chief Christopher. Thank you for that. There are so many creative ways of looking at healthcare these days. I'm the founder of the Whatcom Business Alliance and president of the Whatcom Business Alliance, and we actually created, because of some of the challenges associated for businesses with the Affordable Care Act when it was implemented initially, we went off the board and developed our own healthcare plan for local businesses, and there are some real creative things that you can do. That what we were able to do is stop the spiraling increase in healthcare costs, and actually not only stabilize them, but we've seen companies actually see their healthcare costs go down. So I don't know enough about the clinic, but clearly, I mean, health, your health, there's nothing more important in life than your health. Without your health, nothing else is important, right? It is number one. And also public safety. I learned a lot from your fire chief, and Sheriff Elfo joined us and learned some more about even public safety and crime and things here. All that stuff needs to be addressed, and it's important. It's going to be addressed at the grassroots level. You guys know what's happening here, and again, as county executive, I listen. It's really much of the stuff that we're talking about happens at the county council level, but you need a county executive that's going to lead. And I've got a track record of doing that, and I will continue to do it.
In the interest of time, and because there is another event going on at 6, thank you for having an opportunity to address these questions. And I know that the meeting down at the community center is going to be wide-ranging questions. And I want to thank you for having taken the time to review these and consider that these aren't the most important questions, but I think these are the first questions that have to be asked before some of the more peripheral questions can be answered. So thank you, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, Carol Frazee, council member, thank you so much for coming.